Today in the US, you can walk into almost any grocery store, gas station, and sporting event and buy water conveniently packaged in a clear plastic bottle. This trend towards single use bottled water is a relatively recent phenomenon, with sales growing almost exponentially over the last 4 decades. In 2011, sales for bottled water in the US reached 9.1 billion gallons, setting a new record high. In fact, we now buy more bottled water by volume than milk or beer. Bottled water sales have grown rapidly despite the fact that consumers have an option for potable water that is highly accessible, far cheaper, and for most Americans flows directly into their home. This option is tap water. In fact, bottled water costs 2,000 to 10,000 times more than tap water. So why are people willing to pay so much more for water? There are several reasons that help explain this phenomenon. First, bottled water companies market their product to make consumers feel that their water is pure and healthy. One of the outcomes is that doubt is often put in the consumer's mind about the safety and purity of tap water. But this doubt is often exacerbated by real concerns with tap water. For example, news stories about breaches in tap water safety and degrading infrastructure leaves consumers confused and uneasy. While these are real concerns, the U.S. policies regarding water protection led to two key federal laws overseen by the Environmental Protection Agency. The Clean Water Act establishes a framework for regulating discharges of pollutants into U.S. waters and quality standards for surface waters. The Safe Drinking Water Act empowers the EPA to set standards for drinking water quality and oversees the water suppliers who implement those standards. Meanwhile, bottled water is overseen by the Food and Drug Administration and follows somewhat different and potentially less stringent regulations. Additionally, taste preferences and a search for healthy alternatives to soda have contributed to growing sales. But the staggering price difference isn't the only cost associated with bottled water. There's also additional energy involved. First, energy is embedded in the plastic and required to turn that plastic into bottles. Additional energy is needed to treat or retreat the water. This can vary depending on the treatment technique used. Energy is needed to fill, seal, and package the water. And finally, energy is needed for transporting the bottled water. This can vary tremendously depending on how far the bottles will travel, but let's assume the low end of the energy requirements. In the end, this is over 1,000 times the energy required to treat and distribute tap water. Additionally, even though most of the bottles are made of a recyclable plastic, only about 25% of all the bottles are actually recycled. The rest end up in the landfills, lakes, and oceans. There are many situations in which bottled water is literally a lifesaver. For example, after natural disasters, in areas without centralized water treatment systems, and in countries whose governments cannot currently ensure the safety of their drinking water. But in regions where tap water is safe and abundant, bottled water rarely seems like the obvious choice. And as a result, many universities, parks, and other organizations are calling for a return to the tap. In summary, bottled water costs a lot more than tap water in terms of money and energy and generates a significant amount of waste, but can be an appropriate option in certain contexts.